Listeners of the deep below, we welcome you to a new story, and as always, ask you to visit the author's work, as well as visit us on other social media platforms. Welcome to the story. The story I'm about to share with you is the story of a time in my life that will haunt me until the day I die. I've never shared this with anyone at all, not even on the internet before this post here. I've always been afraid that someone will think I'm crazy or that I'm just having a false memory from my childhood. But now, I don't care. I just want some clarity on this event. What it could have been and what exactly it meant. So, here it goes. I was about 3 or 4 years old. I cannot remember exactly at what point in time this had occurred. All I remember very distinctly is this. One night, I laid awake until the late hours of the night. I had an overwhelming sense of being watched. The room felt cold, and I heard the branches of a tree outside grazing my window. Just as I'm about to close my eyes and try to sleep, I heard 3 soft knocks by my door. I turned to my left and looked out into the hallway and saw my dad peering in from the side. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I remember that he came in, talked with me for a minute, and I felt pretty comforted. I fell asleep right after that. Nothing too weird the first night, but I promise, this goes from 0 to 10 within the span of a few days. The next night is when things started to get weird. Once again, I could not sleep and was up late. I heard the 3 knocks by my door, and this time, my dad was standing in the center of the door frame. He didn't say anything, just stared at me with a blank expression on his face. I wasn't sure what exactly was going on, but I remember feeling uneasy. I asked him what he was doing multiple times, but he didn't say anything, just stood there, staring. After a few minutes, he just walked away, but never broke eye contact. I didn't think much of it and drifted off to sleep. The third night is when things became a bit more sinister and odd. No matter how hard I tried to sleep, I just could not. I felt so anxious for seemingly no reason. I was sweating buckets and felt cold. Again, I heard 3 knocks at my door. "Dad?" I said as I looked at my door. This time, my dad was standing in the center of the doorway, staring and smiling at me with a big smile. As a kid, I thought he was just joking around or something, so I laughed at him. I said something like, "You're silly, Daddy." And then he just walked away without breaking eye contact or breaking the big smile. The final night is when, even as an oblivious toddler, I knew something was horribly wrong with my dad. Same routine, stay up late, and a tree knocks by my door. Only this time, when I looked at my door, my dad was not there. I was confused, but didn't overthink it and begin to drift off to sleep. I'm not sure how much time had passed, but it seemed that in an instant I woke up and my dad was standing at the foot of the bed. He just stood there, staring at me and smiling menacingly. He looked psychotic. It creeped me out, and I was on the verge of panicking. "Daddy?" I asked. He didn't say anything. He just smiled bigger and started breathing heavy. He looked terrifying. I screamed for my mom. My dad quickly leaves the room, still not breaking eye contact, and looked as if he was laughing through his teeth without making any sound. I was so terrified. My mom came rushing in. She was almost as shook up as I was. "Jake, what's wrong? What's wrong?" she shouted. I was crying and could not bring myself to explain what had happened. She eventually calmed me down, and I explained what I had saw. She told me I had just had a bad nightmare and that everything is okay. I knew what I had experienced, but to sort of comfort myself, I convinced myself it really was just a dream. My mom leaves the room, and just as she does, my dad enters my room. "Hey, what's happened, bud? Your mommy said you had a bad dream," he asked softly and with concern. I continued to explain what I saw, and he told me everything is okay. He gave me a hug, then said, "I'll always be with you, Jake," with a smile. I smiled back, told him I love him, and laid back down. "Love you too, son. Get some sleep," he said as he exited my room. Flash forward to last night. I am now 16. I sat down at a dinner table with my mom. I had found out later in life that my dad had passed away when I was at a young age, but I never knew the full details. So, I decided I was going to ask my mom to tell me more about him and how and when he had passed. We begin talking about him and eventually we get to how he passed. My mom explained to me that he had passed away due to cancer when I was just 2 years old. My heart sank at the realization I just had. I tried to keep it together, but my mom could tell I was very shaken up. She hugs me and begins to cry. "It's okay. He loved you so much, sweetie," she whispers. I'm also crying at this point. My heart is racing, and I'm stricken with both grief and fear. I know what I saw that night, and it surely was not a dream. I was so confused, and began to feel uneasy, just as I did on those terrifying nights. My mind was racing, but I just tried to calm down and brush it all off as a false memory from my childhood. I set my glasses on my side table and laid down. I began to fall asleep when suddenly I hear 3 knocks at my door. I look up and just see a blurry black mass standing in the doorway. I thought maybe my mom was waking me up to ask me something. I sit up and put my glasses on so I can see clearly. It's my dad. He's standing there in the doorway, just staring at me with that creepy fucking smile. That fucking smile. His eyes are solid black, and he steps into the room. I'm absolutely terrified and frozen in place. He cocks his head to the side slightly and says with a big smile, "This isn't a dream."